Happy Scum Day, you dirty sunbags. Wait, I think I fucked that up. Today's a very special day for the Scumbag cult. We are gonna be taking a peek at your latte art, the ones that you submitted on my subreddit so that I could critique it. I did one of these videos about a year ago and everyone was telling me that I was being way too soft in the video, giving everybody a 10 out of 10. So I think I'm gonna amp it up a little bit this year and unleash
the inner demon inside of me. I'll rate your latte art and shit on your grave.
So let's get started. Let's start with the first person that actually posted on this page. Big Soft Bish. Let's jump right in. Okay. Right off the bat, the size cup you're using is a bit too high up. You wanna make sure that your cup is in a bowl shape. If it's not in a bowl shape, you're gonna have to fill the cup up more prior to starting your pour, which is gonna make it a little bit harder to pour. Let's keep watching. It keeps going out at that one point. Alrighty, so that moment right there where you pause and you set the cup back down and you swirl it, I know you want to do that. It's totally okay to do that if you're using a smaller volume of liquid, but you're using a very tall cup and you've added a lot of milk and you're already, taking a bit of time to do it. By the time you actually add that milk and sit that back down and swirl it, your milk is gonna be a bit more stiff, both in the cup and in the pitcher. So my recommendation for you is to get a bowl-shaped cup. Not Neutral sells those as well, and I think you might actually like them a little bit more. And that will allow you to start the pour sooner, which will give you more room to make more of your design. Let's keep watching. Last little bit. You are holding the cup by the handle, which is great. I love that you're doing that. But you're holding the handle where it is going on the same path as the spout is facing. The only reason that's kind of an issue is that if you were right-handed, when you're holding the drink, you're gonna be looking at the design and the design is gonna be sideways. So if you turn your cup where the handle is facing into you, unless you're left-handed, in that case you want the handle to face away from you, then your design is gonna be facing whoever's drinking it, assuming that they're right-handed. However, what I love about this pour is your ripples and your rosetta is absolutely stunning. Good job, good job. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, but I actually really do love the ripples and I want everyone at home to take note that they started with a beautifully consistent rocking motion. Wide ripples are gonna give you more color if you're pulling back at the same time, which I think is really beautiful in latte art, and you got a really consistent ripple here, which is pretty hard to do for most people. So again, one more applause. You're already killing it. Just use less milk before you do the pour and use a wider cup that allows you more clearance. But it does look pretty fucking delicious, I'd say. Nice. No sound this time, so I guess I gotta add the sound in commentary and say, wow, look at that pour. Wow, look at that person throw layers into the cup. That's actually really great. I'm not gonna be a jerk. So you made a tulip design. You did a wing tulip design where you had a wing and 3 layers. First thing I think is true is I think you have a little bit too much milk in the pitcher, and having too much milk in your pitcher is gonna make it harder for you to get that spout closer to the surface. All right, and good swirling, nice tilt. I want you to tilt more. If you can tilt that cup towards the pitcher so much so that the liquid is almost spilling out, I think you'll have an easier time pouring these designs. And then also, just like the last one, you just integrated a bit too long. I would say that right here is where you should have stopped. But you have great form and you have great ripples. We just want to get them into the cup sooner so that they can pull all the way up in the cup. You integrate, and that's when I would stop. And I would tilt the cup back towards the pitcher and get deeper in the cup when I do that first part of the design. So then you're gonna keep going. So yeah, so you filled up the cup a lot, and by this point, it makes sense because you can get closer to the surface if the cup is more full, but if it's so full that the foam is now stiff when you try to pour into it, it's actually a negative thing. And you can't get the design to fill up the cup, essentially. But let's keep watching. Whoops. However, your ripples are great. I think you can add more ripples. If you start sooner, you'll be able to ripple longer, which will make that wing way more impressive. But great job, really great job. Pretty tulip. Thank you, C and Clay, Sean and Clay. This is an attempt at a swan, right? Oh, my foot's going to sleep. Let's start that over. I think your milk is kind of thin. It appears to be pretty thin, so you might have a little bit of a slidey motion in your pour. Add a bit more air before you pour. However, an amazing amount of integration. That is exactly how much you want to use. Less is more. Great job. So you're starting at the right time and you're tilting the cup enough. However, you're not getting the spout close enough. And the spout even has a shadow on the cup. That's how high you are. You want to commit to leaning the pitcher down onto the surface. I'm looking at your ripples too, and I'm noticing they're mostly consistent. They kind of start to trickle out here at the end, at the top. You don't get as much of that color infusion that you started with. So what I would recommend to you is instead of doing ripples so fast, make them a bit wider. Making the ripples wider is gonna obviously make them slower because they are moving a further distance each time. That way they don't stop like they do right here. They kind of stop as you're finishing the pour. So if you combine those things, getting closer to the pour when you start and rippling wider, I think you're gonna see a really beautiful contrast between the color. Another thing I'm noticing is that when you do the pull down, it looks great, but when you do the pull up on the neck, you're giving it a bit of a thicker neck by holding the spout there a little too long. So you can move a little bit quicker on that pull up when you're doing the swan's neck. And then with the head of the swan, make sure that you're still tilting the pitcher and pulling through all the way to create that beak shape. Otherwise, it kind of looks like Pac-Man eating the tail of a snake. But great job. Great job, Darth Dooku. This one's titled Hey. Hey. Alrighty, so we have integration. Okay, pause. Pause for just a second because I think you actually have the same issue that the other pours were having where the milk is just a little bit thin, and also you're definitely past the point I would recommend for integration. If the milk is thin, you can't start the pour early because it's gonna blob all away from you. So you have to fill the cup up more, donating more foam to that cup so that when you do pour, it's a little bit stiffer and you actually have less of that warping effect. But we kind of want the opposite. We want the foam to glide away from us so that our design is fuller. To do that, you have to add a little bit more air to your milk. So what I'd recommend for you is to add a little bit more air, and then when you're integrating, you're gonna integrate, and then stop right there. Maybe even a little sooner than that. Then when you get close to the surface, I bet you'll be able to get quadruple the amount of ripples that you normally get. Then with these subsequent layers, the ones where you're trying to have them wrap, your placement is awesome. I really love how you are pushing layers in. What I will say is that when you're layering these designs, you can do a bit more of a cut up with the pitcher to give them some separation when you're putting a layer next to it. Rather than the foam being kind of in a circle, it'll be more of this crescent shape, which will receive the next layer better. And don't you just love it when your layers receive each other? And you did have a bit of a ghostly heart here at the top, and that's because your milk is thin. But that's okay because we're gonna correct that next time. Moving on, pretty good. That's pretty good, hey. We're gonna do one more. Let's do one more. Perfetto. I think that is a type of cured meat. This is the whole setup. You gave me the whole thing. That's awesome. Nice. Don't do that in a cafe. Got a paper filter. I relate to that so hard. And just right off the bat, and we saw this with the first pour too, you wanna make sure you have that bowl-shaped cup. The last thing you wanna have is a tall wall. Pretty shot though. Don't laugh at my crema. It took me forever to get this far because making videos sucks sometimes. Homies, it does suck sometimes. And I'm not gonna laugh at your crema, and it's also not a big deal. What's a bigger deal is that cup. All right, let's watch your steaming. Okay, first off, you have way too much milk, but I understand why you have too much milk because you're gonna be pouring into what I do, baby. It's the tall cup, tall wall. So you have to have more milk in the pitcher, but you have a smaller pitcher, which is gonna make it harder for you to get close to the surface. And also you're in a tall cup, which is gonna make it harder for you to get close to the surface. So bowl cups, please. Form is good. Air injections sound great. Okay, by this point, you can stop adding air. You've been adding air for a little while, and then yeah, you added more air. Add air at the end, you're introducing new air that is gonna be a new bubble size than the bubbles that you added way in the beginning that have been mixing in your milk the whole time. All right, here's the pour. Great so far. And again, if you were using a rounded cup, I would say to start the pour right now. No, you're out of frame. Yeah, you can do that. Perfetto. I love your scream. One more time. Notice that when you started the pour, you have very little room to actually add the pour. And I feel like that if you started a little bit sooner, and even with the tall cup, you can start a little bit sooner and just tilt the cup more. I feel like that if you did that, you'd have been happier with the design. It looks like you were trying to do a ripple heart by you wiggling the pitcher and creating the heart, but it fills up in about 1 second. So you don't get enough time to develop it. However, I think it looks really good. I think you should be proud. A lot of the pours that we've seen today have had similar issues going on with them. They were actually similar to my most recent video, top 5 mistakes you're definitely making in your latte art. So if this is happening to you, make sure to click that video because it's gonna give you the answers in less than 5 minutes too. I'll see you later, you dirty, filthy, awesome people. See how I flipped it there? You thought I was gonna call you scumbags, you scumbags.